it's funny talking about movies that have historical context. And like I was telling you a minute ago, my knowledge of the United States history isn't great. I know a little bit, but it's weird, man. The more that the internet determines what people think they know, myself included, the more I realize it's very important to continue reading books. And I know that one could easily just say, well, the person who wrote the book could be full of shit too, which is 100% true. But at least a lot of times in books, they're citing their sources.
Yes, they have to do research and actually to write a book.
And I
Someone can
think,
write an article or a Wikipedia article and not know
yeah,
shit.
I don't know much about the whole Wikipedia thing about what is and isn't true or not, but I'm becoming more and more skeptical to a lot of what I read on Wikipedia. That's for sure, as most people can just go in and edit it. And it's just a weird thing. You know what? If I buy a book about something taking place in the Civil War, I can look at the author. I can then probably learn a little bit about the author, but I know it's a man or a woman because I see their image on the dust booklet. Now, maybe that won't always be a reliable method with AI generated images, but I'm pretty sure a person wrote that book. And I'm pretty sure a person is putting their reputation on the line and making themselves very public as to who they are and what they're writing. Versus a Wikipedia article can just be authored by anybody from the dark recesses of some basement somewhere who could just put something out there and then, and I know it can be challenged and changed and everything else and stuff like that. And there's probably an argument to be had that Wikipedia presents more robust vetting than an author writing a book, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure I believe that. There's something about reading a book by an author and taking it with a grain of salt. And I'm not sure, and maybe they do, and maybe I'm wrong, but I hope people take Wikipedia with a grain of salt. Because it's funny, in this movie here, in Outlaw Josey Wales Cop, I was reading about some of this stuff that took place, some of these bloody affairs in the post-war era, I believe it was.
Yeah.
But no, it's a fascinating tale, and I think there's a historical context in which Outlaw Josey Wales takes place, but I'm not super convinced it's massively important. I'm not sure how important it is to get pulled into the weeds of the politics of the time, based on the discussion about this movie. I'm sure we'll get pulled into it a little bit, but I don't know how much it really matters to the makers of the movie. In this case, the director Clint Eastwood, and all of that. So yeah, that's just kind of my opening salvo that I have. And then in terms of the movie, I did like this movie. I'm not jumping up and down about it though, but I did like it, and I think that there's a couple things I need to sort of reconcile with. In terms of this movie, I do really like the guy who plays Lone Watty. Is that his name?
Yeah, well, his chief, I forgot his name. Chief Dan
we'll
George.
Yeah, he was. I think he was a really needed component in this movie. I think he really started to change how he brought something else to the movie. And I'm not taking anything away from Clint. I really like Clint. But I'll be honest with you, and this is a cool movie. Like, I like Josey Wales, but I definitely like The Searchers more.
Yes, I
do.
agree.
I think it's a better movie than Josey Wales.
It's a better film.
But I do like Josey Wales.
This is entertaining for sure.
I was kind of like, it's pretty good after my first viewing. And then after a couple more viewings, I'm like, all right, I like it a little bit more. But with The Searchers, I immediately liked it, and I think it's brilliant. I'm not sure Josey Wales is brilliant, and who gives a fuck? But it's entertaining, and I think Clint is great, But yeah, there's, I think I'm doing something I usually ask people not to do, and I'm trying not to bring how do I say this? My modern sensibility to something from the 70s. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's difficult.
It's weird.
It's difficult in general.
But I guess I'll get more into that as we get going. But I think the first thing I'll say, just from a movie standpoint, is I think this movie needed to be rated R. It's weird with PG when they're killing guys with
It's
Gatling guns and they're just falling over. It takes away from the production value. And I'm not saying blow their guts out in a Tarantino way, but it's very antiseptic to me. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you just falling over. It's goofy.
There is a little bit of that in this.
Which
but
is
I didn't know
funny
it was
because like in
PG.
the 70s, yeah, it's PG, this fucking movie.
That's crazy.
But I've been kind of just blathering. You want to jump in here and give me some high level thoughts on Outlaw Josey Wales?
Oh, let's not get crazy and call my shit high level. But I mean, yeah, you're definitely right about the context of or the politics of the time isn't really too much a key factor in this movie. I will say that the downtrodden South is something that I will branch out on a little bit.
The hope, the lost cause, as it were, right?
Yeah, I mean, whatever your politics are, I am very well versed in American Civil War history, especially.
Mm-hmm.
I've traveled to many Civil War sites. I've been to Andersonville, which was like the worst prison camp in the South for Union soldiers. They actually made a movie about it. And I've seen a lot of things and read a lot of books, and it was all sparked from a teacher I had in 7th grade, and I've been like that ever since. But the only thing you really need to know about anyone really after a war is there are winners and there are losers, and the losers are punished usually,
of course.
And the South was punished a lot. I mean,
sure.
We get into this movie a little bit. You see the redlegs there. They're kind of Union soldiers, but don't follow like laws of quarter or even civility at all. They're just bad guys in the good guys' outfits. And
that's an important distinction, because I think a lot of times you'll hear this sentiment shared about that's like no matter what the cost.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, because of a result of the Civil War, slavery was abolished. And most would just say, well, then that's the best net good no matter what atrocities were committed. And I think that is pretty dark shit. Obviously, again, if anybody in 2024 is going to say, well, maybe we would have benefited from maintaining slavery, I think it's just a stupid proposition to take. I think if you're going to make a country and you're going to base your country around the ideology of free men, that you really have to have free men in your country for it to be a country of free men. You can't have men that are owned, be it slave or otherwise. And I think that's really what it comes down to. A lot of atrocities that were committed in the Civil War were committed by Confederate soldiers, bushwhackers, etc. And then, of course, as you're indicating, Union soldiers, redlegs, and or as they were known, Jayhawkers, I believe, right?
Yep.
Or the Jayhawks. And the Jayhawks were pretty bad dudes. And it was, I think one of the things that war can do, and war often does, is not only does it bring out some heroism, self-sacrifice, nobility, but I think it brings out murder, rape, pillaging, and the worst in men. I think when the killing starts and men's blood get up, bad things happen, regardless of whatever their stated cause may or may not be. And I think that there's a lot of guys who are just killers. I think they're just killers, men. And they go, cool, we'll say it's about ending slavery, great. Or we'll say it's about maintaining slavery, whatever it happens to be, just so we can go get to the killing and the thieving and the looting. Yeah. When really, maybe I'm sure there were plenty of Northerners and Southerners who could give a fuck about the institution of slavery. They just wanted to kill and hurt people and steal. They're just bad guys, I think that's a reality.
It is a reality. There's a lot of that.
And I think that's really what it comes down to with a lot of this shit. And I think that's really what this movie wants to focus on is good men and bad men and kind of men in between, without getting them wrapped up into the politics of the time. But that at any cost shit is that's really hardcore shit, man. The question is always, could it have been done another way? I'm not versed enough on it to know. Could slavery have been abolished without killing, I don't know, 1 million people? I'm not even sure what the numbers are from the Civil War. 750,000.
They're up there. They're up there.
But could it have been? I don't know. I'm not sure. Shane Gillis has that joke. We we had to shoot slavery out of them. It's a really funny fucking joke, and it might be damn well true. I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's fucking. It's just that at any cost shit is a really intense proposition. Now
it's really scary.
Now, if you and your family were held in bondage, you would try to escape at any cost.
Of course,
of course you would, especially if you're being mistreated. First of all, being owned is being mistreated, as far as I can tell.
That's the baseline.
That's the baseline of simple morality, as far as I can see. And then it gets worse from there, depending on how the treatment would go. But my guess is you would kill a slave owner and anyone that stood between you and freedom. And I'm almost certain that there would be some real moral justification in that, I just hate making broad, sweeping moral terms about stuff. I don't know if I'm qualified for that. But I know that if my family was held in bondage and I have an opportunity to kill my captors and anyone that stood between me and freedom, I'd probably do that thing, you know?
Can't blame you.
Yeah, and of course. I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. But I think I don't think it was that pure. I think there were people killing other people who might not necessarily have been standing in the way of that. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like saying, well, in other words, I'm not sure the Jayhawks have really had any moral ground to slaughter and burn villages like they did. I'm not sure they had the ground for that. Even if they were citing, well, these are pro-slavery villages. I don't even know what that means. I think that's politics. And I think we have to remember that the same governments that existed back then exist today. And are you telling me you believe the things they tell you? Are you sure you believe what was said about the Civil War? Because are you sure you can believe what was said about anything how about the Iraq War?
Yeah,
do you believe
exactly.
the pretext of weapons of mass destruction, of which there were none found in all of the killing that took place in the Middle East? Because if you have some doubt there, maybe you should consider some doubt about what was touted back in the Civil War days and any time in between, right? Because we can do that and not be pro-Confederate. We can do it and not be pro-Union. We can just do it and be men discussing the history of our nation and go like, we got to learn from this shit, man.
You can have a critical eye without choosing a side or even acknowledging there are sides. Now
and I will be honest, my side is usually anti-establishment, and I know that that's my problem, and I know that sometimes can be a bit juvenile, to be frank. But
is that really a problem though?
I don't know.
I don't think that's a
because
problem.
I just typically the way I see it is it's always perpetuated by men in power. It seems to be perpetuated. Owning men comes from other men in power. Owning men came from men in governments.
Yeah.
So we could start there, right? So, hey, what are you gonna do?
And you could go around and around about it, but it's more. It's hard to look back and go, yeah, well, your perspective of the time really shapes your thought process of what happened. If you're a northern guy and you hear about Sherman marching to the sea, burning every farm, every village down, you're like some north people from the north, they celebrate that.
Mm-hmm.
Go down in Atlanta and talk about Sherman and see if you don't get punched in the mouth to this day.
To this day. Yep.
Because I'm a smart ass and I make jokes. And I even made a joke about Sam Houston once, about how Sam Houston let all the people in the Alamo die for his own political gain. And I was just breaking balls. And one guy looked at me, and he was the guy we were staying with. He goes, don't joke about Sam Houston.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's 200 years ago. I'm like, are you serious? But they still hold that.
That whole thing, and this is something I do know based on some of the shit I was reading in The Empire of the Summer Moon. But a lot of that whole Alamo thing really backfired. But I don't want to go off on an entire history podcast right now. But that whole thing backfired because, 150 guys killed 2,000 guys or some shit.
Santa Anna's army was wiped out right after that too.
That's why. Because
in 20 minutes.
Right. His army got wiped out. Destroying the Alamo was a critical error because of what led to the ultimate destruction of Santa Anna's army. Exactly. And that really steeled them against these guys. And those fucking Texans are tough sons of bitches, man.
The next day they had all the conscripts they could need.
Yeah. You got it. Volunteers.
And then some.
And I think what precipitates a lot of this conversation is in this movie, it starts with, of course, Josie's family getting murdered in Missouri, and then we meet, played by, I believe, John Russell, was it? I don't remember, but Bloody Bill Anderson is who that's supposed to be. Not Fletcher, but the other guy. You've heard of Bloody Bill Anderson?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Bloody Bill Anderson was a pretty nasty fucking dude. He ended up getting killed, shot when he was in his early 20s. So this guy's woefully miscast. He's too old. We only see him in this opening scene anyway. But apparently it's we're going to set things right. So you got to put yourself in Josie's position. His family is murdered. His house is burned to the ground. He was just a guy out here living.
Yeah,
he was out here
being a regular farmer,
just a dude out here living. We don't really get any sentiments on how Josie Wales feels about slavery, at least in the book, at least in the movie. I don't know if he has one in the book, but he does have a line in this movie that I think is important, and it happens later in the movies when he says, "quote, you tell her I don't want nobody belonging to me," when he's talking about Little Moonlight, and I think that pretty much sums up his opinion on owning people. But as far as he's concerned, his family was killed. And because his family was killed, he took up in a vehicle of vengeance. And isn't this just the way it goes with sectarian violence all over the fucking world? We've talked about this in the Middle East for God knows how long. You know, your family gets blown up. You're going to probably join the people that give you the ability to bring what you believe is justice upon those who did it. That's just life.
Yeah.
You know, when you take everything away from somebody, you leave them with very little choice other than to embark on a life of violence.
Yeah, and they'll make choices they normally wouldn't make because they have nothing left to lose.
Yep.
Josie's family, his livelihood is taken away by these redlegs, and because they're Union soldiers, I think he joins the Confederacy for that.
Well, he's a Southerner. He lives in Missouri.
He's a Southerner, but I think he had I don't think he had any inclination to fight because you see him just being a farmer during the Civil War.
Yeah, I was thinking to say, so that's a great point. So he's also not young. I mean, he's not old, but he's not your typical recruit age guy.
Not fighting age.
Yeah, and so I think, but he can,
of course,
clearly. But I think, I think he's just like, well. And I think this was a sentiment held by a lot of people in the South. They're just like, well, I'm just going to keep living down here while all these people kill each other. And then one day a company of men roll through and just take everything from you under the banner of some morality because you are pro-slavery. He's like, but I was born here. Like, it's an interesting idea. Like, you are just, it's almost like saying, like, it's not almost like saying, but how about this? Let's talk about a parallel. There are people that die in terrorist attacks or people that die because of some horrible thing that the U.S. did in the Middle East. They're not guilty. They're not guilty and or deserving of death because they live in a country that supports a thing. You know what I'm saying? That supported a terrible thing that maybe prompted somebody to be like, I'm going to fly a fucking plane into a building. Obviously, killing lots of innocent people, which is really fucked, or any of the shit going on in the Middle East now. But it's not. Those people aren't. They should not be indicted for the crimes of their government. And
that would be like
just
us.
The way it is.
That would be our civilization, America. Like, do I have to go to jail? Well, should I be punished for something my government did?
Right. Exactly.
No, of course not. Especially when I don't harbor the same sentiments or feelings. And Josie Wales here, that's what I got from it. I don't think he has that. I think he's just trying to live life. And that's one thing about the Civil War that is glossed over, and a lot of books actually touch on it if you start getting into it, was a lot of people were just trying to live life. The amount of people that owned slaves was like, there were the 1%ers of 1861.
Right.
Most people did not. However, most people fought because the government was like trying to tell you how to live your life. And now a lot of us are just kind of complacent and we're totally cool with that. And some of us aren't still to this day.
I think we kind of covered this already on the Searchers, this whole idea. But I'm also certain that there were probably some people that didn't own slaves that fought that were in fact pro-slavery. I'm sure those guys existed too, right? So it's important that we make sure to continue to paint an entire picture here. And I think, but I think to your point, yeah, I mean, it's this, the one denominator, and one of the reasons I feel the way I do about the establishment. And I'm not as gutsy as some people I know, which is like, yeah, flick a switch and let anarchy reign. I don't know if I'm really, I'm not sure we're ready for that as a people. But I do
Right.
certainly believe in curtailing as much as possible the powers of government, so we can not go to war, so we can not go do this shit, so we can't oppress people, so we can't take people's rights away. And it's just shitty, It shouldn't be. We shouldn't have to give rights to people. They should just be there.
Yeah.
I hate when we do stuff like, hey, women can vote. Isn't that cool? Well, they shouldn't have not been able to vote. Stop saying the government did this for them, because the government is who took it away from them in the first place, or didn't give it to them. It should have just
never
been
gave
there.
it to them in the first place.
Exactly. It's the same shit. Like the government freed slaves. The same government that owns slaves you're talking about.
Yeah.
They should never even have owned them in the fucking first place. And I hate that. I hate that we sometimes look at our oppressors as these great liberators. It's just fucked up. Like they oppress you into believing that then when they change, they suddenly liberate you from the thing they've perpetuated all along. It's like these fucking politicians who are like, I was pro, marriage is between man and woman. Cut 20 years forward. I support the LGBTQ community. It's like, well, where were you 20 fucking years ago? Now you're just putting your finger up and you're going with the wind, brother.
Yeah,
you're not doing
exactly.
anything. You're not a renegade. You're just going with the popular movement right now. That's what you're doing. You're towing the company fucking line. And some people might say, well, Dean, isn't that good? Isn't that a good thing that they're doing that? Yeah, it is. But let's not hold them up as heroes. Let's remember they're just politicians going the direction of the fucking wind. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's my short rant for now. But no, man, I think that this whole thing in the beginning of this movie is crazy. This whole shit with these guys surrendering, like the war is over, and then there are all these holdouts. And yeah, I think there's a lot of Southerners who are like, I don't want the federal government telling me how to live. Like the New York doesn't tell Missouri how to live. And I think there's something honorable in that outside of the institution of slavery. And I think that it's, I think that these guys didn't want to give up. And then when they did, as we see in this movie, they get sort of massacred for it. Now, I don't know if there's tales of Confederate soldiers surrendering in mass and then being gunned down. I don't know if that existed. Maybe it did. I'm not sure. I don't know if you came across that in your reading, but
in all the books, I mean, there was. It
feels a little far fetched to me, like surrendering men got gunned down.
It is a little bit. It wasn't usually surrendering men. It was men that would flee.
Right.
Like
or
they
town.
would, because
towns got fucked up.
Oh
Just
yeah,
regular
towns got
people.
like leveled. But I'm saying is if you surrendered, or like if they found out you were holding out and you ran, they would shoot you.
Mhm.
Like they wanted you to come and you go. This swear fealty thing. I haven't seen too much of that in my research.
Swear to the United States government.
Yeah, the only one who had to swear was Robert E. Lee when he surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse. He was told, "I'll never raise a hand against the Union again."
Yeah, that's very much like rub your nose in it, just to send a message, I think, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that from the winning force. That makes sense to me. It's like having the emperor sign his surrender papers on the battleship Missouri.
Yeah.
Come on our ship and sign it in front of us, bitch. We ain't gonna have you sign that shit in Japan. You come and be on our warship and sign. Like, I get it.
It's strategic. It's strategic because otherwise
it's all
you'll
power
have people.
Shit.
You'll have people that will fight forever.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, if you don't have your leader an open gesture of surrender, that man's soldiers will continue to fight. Otherwise, I mean, they did.
Right, but not many cases, as depicted in the movie. Not many cases. I'm sure there may be one. Maybe somebody will dig one up and send it to me. But of this type of behavior, just straight up murdering, surrendering guys. Yeah, like, oh, gun them down.
That wouldn't fix your problem. That wouldn't fix your problem.
It would lionize them against you. Yeah, exactly. In fact, go ahead.
I was going to say, right after the Civil War, there was 20 years of they called the Reconstruction era, which we sent carpetbaggers scallywags.
Yeah.
Your own. Basically anyone in office during the Confederacy was not allowed to hold office after.
Right.
So all they had all these new government officials.
Governments.
Yes, they all came down and took over for the South, and you wouldn't want people murdering people because they would fight against that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those people were honestly the worst people ever. To come dead, they robbed people, they kidnapped people, they stole people's goods, all in the sake of restoring the Union. It's
But again, this is always the case. We always fly under the flag of morality to do our criminality, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really fucked up. It's crazy that anyone thinks that there's this pure, wonderful government that existed during the Civil War. Because I'm like, well, how did it go for black people after that? How are the 60s for the black people? Not great. Right? Fucking awful.
How did anything go for the Native Americans right after the Civil War? I can tell you, they don't think they exactly. Before? Jesus Christ! You start looking back in history, and I won't go too much.
What a great point you're making.
What
a great point you're making. You're like, look at this noble government that slaughtered all the fucking Native Americans. Now they're gonna free the black people. That's their banner. It's nothing else. There's nothing nefarious there. Same guys that slaughter these people. Okay,
millions
of
them.
So. If you say so. But no, broke 300 treaties. Was it?
Yeah,
300.
Our government broke a treaty last year with 2 reservations, by the way. So.
How unsurprising.
Yeah, exactly. And to anyone who's Native, I'm
because it's all
sure
bullshit.
They know.
Because it's all bullshit. Because the government might makes right.
Yep. And we've given you we've taken away your ability to muster your own forces and keep your own force. Yep. So we don't have to answer to you. And our treaty is just made of paper. And we don't have to answer to it. We don't have to keep it up. And then once the government goes, this doesn't work for us, they just don't do it.
Yeah.
And there's no recourse. Yeah, they protest, but the government goes, okay, cool. What are you going to do?
So Senator Jim Lane is the Jayhawk leader, right? Redlegs, Jayhawks, the same thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's just a kind of a cover because I don't think they wanted to call them that in this.
Yeah, I think Redlegs was... Oh, you think they didn't want to call them Jayhawks?
Yeah.
Isn't the men's basketball, isn't Kansas City still called the Jayhawks? That's kind of hilarious.
I think it might be.
I think Jayhawks is actually still a college sports name.
Yeah, men's basketball.
That's hilarious. Get rid of the Washington Redskins. But those Jayhawks are pretty sick.
It's cool because they were blue.
Can you
and they
imagine
murdered a lot of people?
Could you fucking imagine if you had a basketball team called the Missouri Bushwhackers? I tell you, the Bushwhackers are looking good in the March Madness bracket. Bushwhackers are going up against the Jayhawks. Some things never change. Tonight at 7.
Our world is nuts. Our country is nuts when you think about it.
And starting at point guard for the Missouri Bushwhackers is Jesse James. He's got a deadly 3-point shot. You should see him with the 6 irons.
Oh, shit.
That's fucking funny, dude. Nobody's up in arms about that, by the way. Nobody cares.
Nobody knows.
That's great. We love them. Nobody's going to listen to that plight. That's what I mean. Like, the fucking Union won, so go fuck yourself. They're saying, like, we're going to call them
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine because the Union won.
Oh, my God. We leveled towns in the name of good.
Democracy.
Funny. That's hilarious, man. I'm pretty sure there is. I haven't looked it up.
Is.
I'm pretty,
it is still. Right? I just looked
up
Jayhawks, Kansas.
Jayhawks in Kansas. That's fucking funny.
Is a men's basketball program in the intercollegiate men's basketball program of the University of Kansas.
Now, I have a question for you. Jayhawk's an actual bird, right?
Yes.
So maybe they're being tongue-in-cheek, which I got to give them props for.
It's totally tongue-in-cheek.
There's not a bird called a bushwhacker. You can't hide that whole bloodthirsty Confederate murdering bitches. Shooting them from the bushes.
Oh, shit.
God damn, dude. That's funny. So anyway,
history is fun.
History's hilarious. So this guy, Jim Lane, I wrote a little bit about him, but
All right.
so he shot and killed this guy named Gaius Jenkins over a land dispute. I guess Gaius Jenkins went to draw water from this well, and Senator Jim Lane, this is a real guy that this guy's supposed to be. Senator Jim Lane has a pretty crazy history, but he murdered the guy. Apparently, the other guy's friend drew first. That's what they say. Shot and killed Gaius Jenkins over a land dispute over well water. And then he lost. So this Senator Jim Lane guy loses the Battle of Drywood Creek to General Price of Missouri after a failed ambush. He gets overrun. And then after losing this battle, he starts a long, he starts attacking pro-Southern areas in Missouri. And it's funny because depending on which article you'll read, it says pro-slavery towns in Missouri or pro-Southern towns in Missouri. Interesting, that distinction, isn't it? Because if you say he attacked a pro-slavery town, I'll let it ride. If you say he attacked a pro-Southern state town, you start going, well. But yeah, that's what he did. So he lost the battle. So he starts making demonstrations with his Jayhawks under the orders of I can't remember who, but he was told make a demonstration with his Jayhawkers. So he starts raiding into Missouri. He sacks Osceola. I don't know if you know much about the sack of Osceola, but he rode in. I guess rumor is that some sources say he rode into town saying, "This is for the slaves, and I hope we give every slave a house here from these white whatevers." But the reality is that's kind of politics too. Like he said shit that he knew, like, so he was being he didn't, whether or not he held those beliefs is yet to be determined. He just said it. But he did a lot of bad things. And there was one rumor. It's funny. I read Wikipedia and I'm like, let me read some Missouri websites. See what they say about this guy. And they have a quote for him stating, and I don't know if there's a source for this quote, so take it with a fucking grain of salt, just like everything else. I would just as soon as buy a Negro as a mule.
Huh.
That's pretty shitty.
That's
Comparing
really
black
shitty.
people to mules is shitty.
Yeah.
But apparently, he's originally from Indiana, by the way.
Yeah, Lawrenceburg.
And was apparently a pro-slavery Democrat before going, oh, wait, there's a political opportunity for me in the South. Let's go anti-slavery so I can get to the killing and the thieving. I don't know. I don't want to besmirch an old senator. But General Henry Halleck of the Union said that he turned thousands of pro-Union people against us. And after a few more raids, the entire state of Missouri will be against us. In other words, he was engaged in such barbarism that the Union general was like, this fucking idiot is going to turn these people who are pro-Union against us.
Yep.
Like, so think about that for just a second. A general is saying that this Senator Jim Lane is such a barbarian that he's going to turn pro-Union people against us. Now, does that suddenly mean they're pro-slavery? No. It means they're anti the guy killing them.
Yeah. Yeah. And the office that allows him to do so.
And the soldiers that are doing it. They're anti that, you know? So it's interesting. Like that's kind of like getting to your point. Like, how often were these surrendering soldiers just murdered outright? You would cause so much backlash if you did this.
Everyone would be, you wouldn't get home. You wouldn't get through these states.
No.
And like this movie touches on it a little bit, the like disdain for Missouri because of the bleeding Kansas.
Bloody Kansas shit's nasty.
Yeah.
That's bloody Bill Anderson, right? Shit.
Yes. Yeah. Where they were just, because they were trying to figure out if these new states were going to be slave states or free states.
Sure.
And the bleeding Kansas, and Henry Lane was part of that. He did a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Leader of the Jayhawkers, and they just raided.
Did I call him Jim Lane by accident?
There's Jim Lane. He had something to do with it too. Okay. Jim Lane and James Henry Lane are the same person.
Okay, I thought so. So. Okay.
Depending on which articles or whatever you look at, but that was the whole thing. Like he wanted, like, he was a brigadier general, and he wanted during the war itself, Lane served as the United States as a general in the Union Army, so he got away with it basically.
Of course,
of killing all those people, no problem.
He was I don't know much about him. I think Wikipedia is softer on him than if you read some southern articles about him.
Paint him in a kinder
this is my
light.
point. Like, who do you read? What's the truth anymore? Who the fuck knows? A lot of people will read that article and go, "Oh, what a fucking hero," you know. I'm not sure he was. I don't know.
I mean, but I think the thing is, and we always say this all the time, that people are morally good and morally bad. We're gray.
Of course,
we're not all superhero. Like, you know, one of the reasons why we love people like Tony Soprano is because he's morally gray. He is.
Well, not just that, because it's a fantastically written character by a once in a lifetime actor.
Exactly. But that's we root for him and we despise him at the same time.
Correct.
And that's great.
Yep. Absolutely.
You know, one moment you're like, oh, you know, he beat, you know, he pistol whips that dude who makes a comment about his daughter, as any of us would. But in the same breath, he's cheating on his wife, and
it's like he doesn't want Meadow dating the black kid, and then at the same time he does these other sweet things. So he's like full of he's a mess. He's a complex, controversial,
character. But that's the thing is, like, soldiers did their bidding.
Yeah.
Whoever was in charge of them. I mean, obviously, you followed rank or you got shot. So obviously,
I don't know. Was that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If you'd be court-martialed, then you'd be hanged if you even made it that far.
Yeah.
So there was no under protest unless you were an officer yourself.
I'm sure there was, and the officers were sort of like sovereign territories unto themselves, right? They just kind of did what they had so much power. They had the power of force. They had all the guns, all the soldiers.
And once you did something wrong, a lot of the times your superior would go, "All right, we gotta show a little face, but don't worry about it. I got you." Like, they would jump on the grenade for their subordinates' bad behavior or poor, very, very miserable behavior, and they get away with it. Both sides. You know, when you study history, you have to take it from both as much as you can. And a lot of the stuff I've read is from not even officers, just regular people who were literate. Yes, and they kept journals, a lot of them, and they were like, "We're marching here today. So and so told us to burn down the house. I didn't want to, but I didn't want to get in trouble either, so I did it." You know, like, you have to take that into consideration too during this period of anything like this. It was that there are some people that were just like, yeah, exactly, right? Which, again, is easy to say. I would stand up in the way and do this. I go, well, you'd end up with a rope around your neck. So would you really?
Yeah, of course.
You know, you have to look at yourself a little deeper, and everyone does when you're pushed in that situation. Obviously, you don't want to just do anything. You know, you don't want to harm people, but it's war. It's war, and that doesn't just justify things. But in the time, it did.
Yeah. They certainly put people in really tough positions, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So after the whole betrayal, they have to kind of hide. And there's a couple cool moments where I like the laying down the horses to hide is so cool.
Yeah.
Like watching him like pull the horse's reins. And that's Clint really pulling that horse down. And like he knows how to handle horses. It's cool.
Yeah, you can tell that he's an equestrian in this, that it's not just him riding a horse because he's doing it for a role.
Right.
He moves pretty well on a horse. He controls the horses pretty well. The only thing that's a little dodgy is when he's trying to like shoot with both his pistols on a horse or one pistol. He's all over the goddamn place, but that's real. You would never hit anything.
Yeah. trying to shoot double pistols from horseback is no joke. During the ferry crossing, I can't remember the name of sort of like the main antagonist that's chasing them down at the ferry crossing, but he
it's his name's Terrell.
No, is it Terrell?
Yeah, Terrell's the ginger guy with his eyes are really close together.
Yeah, played by Bill
jokes
McKinney,
about earlier.
Right?
Yeah.
So Terrell does look like he's got a unique family tree. Let's just put it that way. Singular in direction, we'll put it.
Yeah, right.
But
her wreath.
I think it's him at one point that says, "Doing right ain't got no end." That is a great line because we can see how this guy is and how doing right ain't got no end. Boy, is that not one of the most oppressively used statements in this movie from a guy pretending he's doing good by doing what he's doing, right? It's that great Montesquieu quote, there is no greater tyranny than that which is perpetuated in the name of good.
Yep. If you feel you're the good one, if you feel righteous and noble about your cause, whatever you do, you're like, it's for this cause.
I just love the sentiment that he has that in this movie is doing right ain't got no end, meaning I will do this. I will, everything I do is justified because it's in the name of good. On some level, he either believes that or he certainly is using it as his liability shield, you know?
Well, they ennobled them by telling them this is all for the Union, preserving the Union.
Of course.
So whatever crimes I commit against humanity, all washed away because the Union supersedes that.
Yeah, can you imagine taking a bunch of killers and being like, down there you can do your killing and it's good.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, dude, we've been doing that forever. I mean, you could talk about the Holy Land, the conquest of the Holy Land. You know, Des Volt, God wills it. It's not. It's murder is bad, but if you murder for God, it's okay. It's just so
absolutely.
crazy when you hear about it. You know,
absolutely. The heathens have our holy place.
That's right. It's crazy. It's crazy when you think about that. But it is a deep thing because in his eyes, he feels like he's justified. He's hunting down a southern man who didn't surrender, who decided not to. And it's weird from whatever view you're taking this movie, whatever person you're looking at or character you're looking at, Josie Wales is justified. Terrell is justified. Fletcher is justified.
Fletcher.
Even like someone shitty like the carpetbagger, the annoying guy. The guy in the white suit selling ink and piss as a cure-all.
Snake oil salesman, literally.
Literally, that's where that came from. Those people, I mean, you got to give entrepreneurs a nod here because anyone who goes, well, I'm making okay money out here, but they're gonna need supplies and things down there. I'm gonna pack up and go sell my bullshit down there and make a ton of money doing it.
Yeah,
I mean. You got to remember that the South, the North and the South.
Everything you have, by the way, everything on your body, everything you're talking into, these microphones, this all comes from entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
Someone
figured,
someone figured this stuff out. This just gets back to the good and bad of all of it,
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
I forgot where I was going.
Nowhere.
I was saying you got to remember that these carpetbaggers came down to the South because they had, the South didn't have any manufacturing. They just had the raw goods. They made all the raw goods, all your cotton and what have you, and then shipped it north to make things. So these people realized that the South would not have any of the crucial things they need. So they all came down and started selling snake oil in white suits to people.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a wild way to live back on the day. The scene where these guys get the drop on Josie and Jamie, and they show up. And they're like, I got him. They got guns on him, right? Because he's now an outlaw. So there's of course a bounty on him. And you're sort of talking about carpetbaggers, or just generally speaking, the historical context around the way these folks lived. And then suddenly these guys get the drop on him, and they cleverly just blow them away. Like the kid's pretending he's got gold, he murders a guy, and Josie Wales just murders a guy. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
That's Tuesday. Like, that's crazy. That's the crazy part of this movie. He's just like, yeah, guys had guns on us. They wanted to turn us in. We killed them. And how are you doing? I'm great. What do you want to do? You want to go for a ride? Sure.
Yeah.
Like,
you want to get breakfast?
It's real mafia shit.
Absolutely.
Like, guys are just accustomed to death, murder. Like, they go in and they murder those guys. Like in Goodfellas, they murder those fucking guys. He's like, what are you doing with the fucking coffee?
Like it's no big deal. It's no big deal.
It's crazy.
And you have to
blow
think
these guys away. It's fine.
You have to think about in the 20th century, we've moved so far away from death in all facets of our lives. We don't think about it. We don't, it's the worst thing ever. And it is, but we don't have any close to us until, for example, like if you were around this time, you were a good chance you were going to lose a son or two or a daughter just from birth. just dying before they reach 10 years old.
Yeah.
Once you got there, you were kind of good, but there was a good chance. It was a good chance you might die of cholera, of diphtheria. Like there's so many things that took you out. So death was right around the corner for us all.
Sure.
So, and especially these people who were soldiers, killing became part of their day.
Mm-hmm.
And when it became part of your day, killing people who were threatening your life is not a problem. And you go on about it like you're saying, like it mattered, not at all. And it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for us to like, you're talking about how we're, it was just another Tuesday for them. It really was. We didn't have that. We don't have any of that. We're mortified by murder to this day. But back then, it was kind of like, well, someone wandered on your property, tried to steal your stuff, you shot him, and you were okay with it because he was trying to take from you. We've evolved in some ways away from that, and then some ways we're still exactly the same. It's kind of really complex. Humanity is really complex, is what I'm trying to get at. It's you're very one way. You want like tooth and nail. You want justice for eye for an eye. Someone kills you or kills your family, you want to kill them. We're still like that, even though we've moved away from that kind of morally. We still go back to that when we're wronged.
Yeah, we've moved away from that from a civilization standpoint, but we all feel the same way, and I think we are supposed to. We should feel that way.
Yeah.
That's the point. I mean, that's how you stay safe. That's how you stay alive. If we didn't, then what are we doing? I think if we didn't, I think we're all on our way out. Well, I mean, the second we stop caring when people murder people we care about, then I think we've changed into something different.
Well, I'm not saying not caring, because obviously everyone's going to care, but becoming where you would kill somebody else.
Yeah.
Like,
but here's what I will say, Scott. I bet if you gave somebody, the easy button from Staples, that was easy.
Yeah.
You push that button. If that button was push this button and you can kill the person that killed your loved one, I think most people would push it still to this day. The difference is in so far as just, the entire structure of the system, but that also is a whole different podcast. Like the way the way we've moved away from just casual revenge or killing people in the name of self-defense. It's just uncommon, at least in the United States, in America, in a place where you have the comforts of a decent income, et cetera. If you live in the fucking streets of Baltimore, this shit's still pretty real.
Yeah.
Like and that's shitty, and that's probably suboptimal, but that's a real thing. Somebody kills one of your buddies, what are you guys going to do about that shit? Nothing?
Yeah. No,
and then you kill him, and now everybody goes to jail. It sucks. Yep. It's fucked up. But no, man, I just like that casual. It's just a different just a different way of life. They're like, kill that guy because he tried to kill us, and then go about our day. But what do you? We've talked around the movie a lot.
Yeah, a little bit
about the movie. What do you think? Just up until where he meets Lone Wati, I think that's how you say it. His adventures thus far. I know we've talked a lot about it, but are you a fan of Clint Eastwood, and are you a fan of Josey Wales?
I am a fan of Clint Eastwood. I like how the movies he makes.
It's a good director.
A good fucking director. They're not. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. He doesn't worry about modern sentiments with his movies.
Sure.
Which I enjoy. I enjoy because you're an environment. You're a product of your environment, and I think his movies. I mean, anything from this to Gran Torino, like they're completely different movies.
Sure,
but they still have the same kind of masculine energy, like protect your people around you.
Indeed, yeah, indeed.
And while we sometimes don't really celebrate that, it's crucial to our society and to protect your loved ones. And so I love his movies. This movie, I will say, I had some issues with some of it, and only because I was using The Searchers as a baseline, because we started there.
Right.
And The Searchers is a much better filmed movie. This is a smaller scale, even though it's going through states. It's a smaller scale. It seems
Close
shots.
It does seem to sort of lack that vision, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes. And while the scenery in this movie is great, it's not as beautiful. The acting is a little cleaner than Searchers, because obviously the 50s acting was like, well, hello there, Pilgrim.
Sure.
You know,
Chief
and
Dan George is brilliant in this movie.
Oh, I was, and you're right. He brings something that this movie needed, and it's levity.
Absolutely.
He is,
but not just that, but like I like his point of view. I like the way Alon Wati feels. I just like this sort of stoic acceptance of the way it is now for the Native Americans, and how there's a wisdom in it, a type of strength, you know.
Yeah, like it's because he's an old
He's
Native American.
Old as shit. Yeah,
he's old. He's seen the change of the way of life for him and his people, and part of being an adult is realizing when you've won and when you've lost. You know, he could go out fighting to his end day, but what does that gain them?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part of his character that I enjoyed, was he was like trying to, like right now we're seeing Injun's vow to endeavor and persevere. Meaning,
well, yeah, that whole introduction of him is
fantastic.
It's fucking great. And they call us civilized because we're easy to sneak up on. That sentence says so much to me.
It's heartbreaking, to be honest with you.
Like super heartbreaking, and it says
the Native Americans were Comanche. You know, they were Comanche.
Mm-hmm.
They were tough. They were the scariest of the
Cherokee.
Native Americans. Yeah, he is. But they were talking later on, like that. You know, these were formidable people. These tribes of Native Americans, both Comanche, Cherokee, Sioux, they're all formidable people.
Yeah.
And now they're been reduced to what? Living on forced land, living on land that was barren. They have
it's fucking tragic, man.
Their pride broken. And that's one of the things I talked about in the beginning of the movie, was the Southerners. Their pride was broken. They were defeated. That puts you in a weird mindset. You know,
yeah.
When my grandfather came back from World War II and they won, and he was still broken.
Of course.
Imagine, I could imagine. I could imagine coming back, like the Vietnam vets I know, coming back to a war that nobody really was popular. Nobody really wanted it. It was the first time in in our country where people were like, yeah, no, we're not going to support you. And coming home and having people screaming at you and spitting at you, call me baby killer because of vile crap. Like, in all seriousness, it's heartbreaking, and it broke people's hearts. And watching Alon Wati here kind of concede, like, shit, this is it for us. This is all I got now. I'm just trying to eke out an existence. We were once some noble thing, and now we're reduced to, living alone in a little shack. It's very heartbreaking.
They took our land and sent us here, by the way. The same heroes that are fighting to free slaves, by the way.
I had to bring it up. I had to, it's weird. The scale.
Seems we can't trust the white man, says says Josey, to which Alon Wati says, you bet we can't. That's just a good moment.
Dude,
but he's so
his
calm,
line
his line is so good. He's like water, this guy. He's just smooth. You don't feel like he's acting. They gave us medals for how civilized we are. We told him of the theft of our land, and he simply said, I think he said, the Secretary of Interior, you boys sure look civilized. He gave us medals for how civilized we were. We told him of the theft of our land, to which he said, endeavor to persevere. Easy for you to say, Mr. Secretary of Interior. Endeavor to persevere. Can you imagine? Can you imagine going home after a tough day at the store? You slap your woman around, and then you say, endeavor to persevere.
Yeah.
What kind of fucking monster are you?
Yeah, that's the worst answer, because it completely
such a douchey fucking thing to say.
It's not only am I absolving myself of all responsibility by saying that to you, of my own actions for taking your land and pushing you onto barren fucking pieces of land. Yeah, what balls you have? Because at the time,
can you imagine the gall to violate somebody and then say, endeavor to persevere?
Yeah. I shot you. Don't bleed to death. Sorry. Endeavor. It's really shitty. It's like one of the worst things you can say to someone who you've broken. You know?
Yeah.
And this movie does a great job at showing a little bit of the sides of the Native Americans and not as just savages.
Absolutely.
Because like some of the other movies kind of put them on, you know, they're just opponents to the people in the story.
Mm-hmm.
This part, when we get into 10 Bears later, like
that shit with 10 Bears is phenomenal.
Dude, I like had goosebumps. I had to like rewatch it, but that's why I asked you to like grab
Same
the
with
clip
Lone Watty. Like there are moments when he talks and he's just like, when he says they lined us up and took our pictures, and then the newspaper said Injuns endeavor to persevere. Like then to add insult to injury, they take pictures of you. Like look at our vanquished foe. See how they're all dressed like Abe Lincoln now? Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Now they look like us. They're
fucking vile.
They're civilized now.
It's vile. But yeah, I do want to talk about the outpost scene because that shit with Little Moonlight, the Zuki Limmer's place. So I got a question for you about Josey Wales. Is he going to intervene here if he doesn't need the horses?
It's actually a really good question. I'm not sure.
I don't know if he was either, but so on the first watch, it made me deeply uncomfortable. And here's why. I talk about it all the time. There's a woman, there's this woman that's getting kind of pushed around between these guys in Escape from New York, and she's sort of flopping around between them, and Snake just kind of walks away. Pretty shitty, right? And then there's a scene in this where Josey Wales walks into this outpost, and he sees these guys not just sort of bouncing around like a pinball machine, but literally on top of her, like pawing at her. Yeah, and he like walks over to them and looks down at her face into her eyeballs. And I'm like, man, was he going to jet in? So I feel like he was on a rewatch. I think initially I was like, man, I don't know. He seemed like he was going to just bail on her had he not needed something. He says, quote, "You suppose these gentlemen will be ready to discuss business before long?" Which I think is a subtext for him saying, I think the subtext here is I'm going to fuck these guys up.
Yeah. Like, I think, I think initially I thought he was going to kind of go like, cause he's that morally gray. Like I said, I think he just wants to go along to get along. But I think that he saw this and it's just, it's still a woman. It's still vile. A fucking woman. And I was uncomfortable watching this. Because they're just holding her down and they're so nonchalant about it. They're just like, whatever.
Dude, exactly. That's the most disturbing part of the scene is they're so nonchalant about their sexual assault of her. It's not like they're hooting and hollering and jumping up and down and caught in some weird fucked up like headspace or intensity. It's just really cold and slowly progressing towards her eventual rape. And I was like, this is fucked up, dude. And this guy Zuki is just going to allow this woman to get raped in his store on the grain pile. Like he sucks too. He was he's beating her with a stick. He fucking sucks. That guy can die. And then
he's just a regular guy.
Yeah,
he's not a gunslinger, and he's shitty for sure.
He's a horrible fucking person.
Yeah, and the Josey Wales killed them all. But
I'm surprised he didn't kill Zuki. But I think that Josey probably planned to intervene because he doesn't. I think if Josey wanted no part of this, I think he goes just outside and steals these guys' horses and lets them continue the rape.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I was gonna say. He doesn't need to ask. He doesn't need to buy a horse. Just steal one.
I think his point in saying it is to get their goat up, to get them to fucking come at him.
Yeah, I think when he locks eyes with her and she's just laying there like kind of lifeless, like looking at him, and I'm like, that is fucking dark. And I think that's when he was like, I got to do something. Something. That's fucking awful.
One of the, and I'm pretty sure this is not the first time, Sally, that this character was raped. She talks about being raped by an Arapaho.
Yeah.
Later,
and they scar her for it.
Correct. So it's funny because she seems tough and a bit feisty with the knives and the riding and I'm surprised she wasn't fighting, but then I'm not even going to, I dare not even get into that psychology. But it's pretty fucked up, this whole scene. But I'm glad, these guys get their guns on him like, I got him. I got Josey Wales. And by the way, the absolute, I think one of the coolest things about Josey Wales is again, that mythic gunslinger shit, which is this guy's got guns pointed at him all the time and he's just like, whatever.
It doesn't even get his blood up.
If somebody pointed a gun at you, you'd be like, please don't kill me.
You'd shit your pants.
You would
You'd shit
be
your pants.
so fucked. Even if you had a gun on your hip, you would still be like, fuck, But I like the idea of the mythic gunslinger and just this like, I'm gonna not only gonna brandish my pistols to pretend to give you, I'm gonna flip them upside down and blow you away.
That's so badass.
It's so fucking cool. And you're glad to see these guys get it. That he drops the hammer on them. By the way, that's that phrase people always associate with an actual hammer. Drop the hammer of the pistol is where that comes from. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Drop the hammer. Is you hear people, he dropped the hammer on him, and I'm like, that means he shot him.
Yep, means you
with
killed
a
him.
6-gun, not he hit him with an actual mallet.
Yeah, no. That was like the whole like don't go off half cocked is because you would half cock your flintlock to put powder in, and it wouldn't be enough to shoot. So you would just it would just fud out and you wouldn't be able to shoot. That's why you pull to full cock. But yeah,
don't go.
I love those little
half-cocked.
things that are embedded in our culture where we don't quite know where they're from. Yeah.
This woman, by the way, who plays Little Moonlight, Geraldine Keams, she's in Twin Peaks. She's the American real estate lady. Yeah, because we just had that. We had to run in for a while, which is pretty cool. And there's another guy in this who plays the judge in Twin Peaks. He's one of those badasses in the bar at the end there.
Oh hell yeah!
But no, I really do like. I do like a lot of this stuff. I really like Little Moonlight. I really like Lone. They're both fucking cool, and Lone is just great. I don't know. I think he really needed to be in this movie. I think it was important to bring to. I think it's cool to have like that sort of Native American POV, and a unique POV at that. Right.
He's also kind of a anchor for Josey Wales.
Yeah, for sure.
There's times where you think Josie's not going to do something, and he's like, "Yeah, we got to handle this." Mm-hmm. And he throughout the movie, Lone Waddy wants to team up with Josey Wales. Mm-hmm. We got a better chance if we're together, and he knows that he's an old aging man. He knows he's got to, he's trying to get. They're thinking about going to Mexico or whatever, and they want, he's good with guns. Wouldn't you want someone like that? And you can tell he can be trusted. He saved Little Moonlight when he didn't have to.
And the whole thing too, the whole thing too between this is like just seeing that there's probably just these people at the end of the day. I like just seeing people be people, regardless of the fact that Josey Wales is a white guy, Caucasian, and that he's Native American. And they're just like, yeah, you're a white guy. He's like, yeah, you're a red guy. What is that? We kind of see past
we're still
that
people.
Shit. Exactly. When the government's not got us at each other's throat, we just kind of see each other as people.
Exactly.
And not all the time. There was still, government didn't create racism. I don't want to lay that at its feet like I do every other thing. But it's cool just to see these two guys, kind of being this way.
Well, I like parts like we're seeing right now. We're watching the movie while we're hanging out here, and I like when it slows down and it's just people talking.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's and like you said, it's not about race. It's just people, and that's some of the most endearing things I like about this time period in movies. There's a lot of action in this movie, but there's also a lot of dialogue. There's also a lot of characters talking to each other. Absolutely,
and I do like that. And let me just go ahead and fix one thing I said about the government not creating racism, because my anti-establishment friends will probably remind me if I don't catch this myself but they sure do know how to perpetuate it.
Absolutely.
They sure know how to keep people at each other's throats so they can maintain their fucking illusion. But anyway,
so they can work.
I'm not going to go on that rabbit hole.
Yeah, we'll be here for 5 hours if we want to go down that one.
I needed to course correct that though. I wish he wouldn't spit at the dog. It makes me want to punch him in the face.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say,
so annoying. The fucking
ridiculous.
spitting thing is kind of cool and funny, but I'm like, what a dick. The way a dude treats a dog tells me a lot about him. And if he spit and chew at a dog's face, I'm like, you're a fucking asshole.
You're a dickhead. That's
right?
The 70s, and they don't love animals like we do. I mean, I'm sure were some people.
Yeah,
some people.
And maybe
but like,
he did, and maybe I don't even know what it's supposed to mean. I think it's supposed to just be like, isn't he just a nasty dude?
He's a pill, you know. He's a hard
pill.
case. Yeah, he's a hard case.
I spit at dogs.
But I'm like, you know how I know Dean is my friend and doesn't like me? He hasn't spit his fucking chew at me yet. So I mean, I'm doing good.
There's 20 spits in this movie, by the way. 20. Of course, the freaks on Reddit mapped them all out.
That's fucking weird.
Yeah, 20 spits. God damn. But you see, I'm guilty of the same thing I accuse everyone else of, and that's, you know, he's just killing people in cold blood. I'm like, but don't spit at the dog. I'm like, those people probably had it coming, but don't spit tobacco at a dog.
I mean,
you know what I mean? It's just funny.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, it's an animal. It doesn't that you know, a pet dog like that doesn't have any malice. He's just hanging out with them all.
Somebody's gonna come at me and be like, he supported the pro-Confederate, pro-slavery Josey Wales, but got upset when he spit at a dog.
You
know what I'm saying? That's gonna be the email I get. God damn it, you fucks.
Oh shit.
Oh my god. No. But yeah, the movie kind of just moves along. It's like this. It is a revenge flick. It's a Western, but it's really a revenge flick that sort of moves its way to what you know will be the eventual showdown. And you know, some of the things the listeners said this week. One of them, Dana Dodd said, and I kind of teased him a little bit about it. Was he saying, "Oh, I don't like this movie because everyone he goes after is a coward and they're all incompetent buffoons." And although I don't think I think if it's a revenge movie, I think the guys you're going after can certainly be cowards, and it probably serves the movie better if they are. But do you think there's a small point in saying that they might be a bit incompetent? Like, did you feel like you know what I mean? Like, does Dana have a point? Does he have a point in suggesting like all of these bad guys are just fodder? Like, there's no real threat to Josey ever. He kind of just wastes. Josey kind of, I think one of the issues with Josey is he just kind of God modes through the whole movie. You never feel like he's truly in danger, or is that just me? I mean, I expect Clint Eastwood to live in the movie.
Of course.
I expect that to happen. So I just want to make it clear that I'm not just saying that, but do you feel like he's ever really in a tough spot?
The only time I think he's in a tough spot is at the end of the movie, the crescendo of the film.
Fair enough.
Everything else, he's very like, he quick draws everybody. And
yeah, I don't mind that. That's fine. You're fastest going to the west or southwest, as it were.
Yeah, but there's always somebody faster. There's always somebody faster.
Well, no, I don't even know if I don't know if I really care about that. But I think what Dana said and what I'm relating to maybe isn't literally what Dana said, but more of it's opening a door in my mind to one of the issues I think I have, and that's just that I think the PG rating hurts the movie a lot because I think it makes the fighting a little bit more antiseptic and just sort of like guys twirling and twisting and falling down.
Yeah, it's very,
you know, it's not like take shootouts in this movie and then take shootouts in the new 310 to Yuma.
Yeah.
Or even Tombstone.
You
know what I mean?
I mean,
it's just like
there's none of that gravitas. There's no seriousness behind it. Like you look at 310 to Yuma or Tombstone, when they go around the corner to the OK Corral, you think someone's going to die. You feel like there's unease, there's tension between the characters and everyone else watching. And in this, you're like, there's no tension because no matter who or what he comes up against, Josey Wales, he's the same dead-eyed, just standing there waiting.
Yeah, this kind of gets back to our bonus episode about iconic characters. What's the lie that Josey Wales believes at the beginning of this movie that he doesn't at the end? There isn't one, so there is no real arc. But we don't need one. He's just an icon, and I'm fine with that. But I do think that I don't. Yeah, it's weird. I think I'm trying to think of how to describe it. I'm not really sure, but
to me, it's like when not the squibs from Total Recall, but like when the random soldiers are shot and fly back and kick their feet together and fall over. It's a lot of the people do weird, like they just fall down like it's like a childhood play. Like when someone gets shot.
That's what I'm talking about. Tone. You know,
Yeah.
Maj and I kind of talked about the tone. She was like, I got a feeling she wasn't a huge fan of the movie at first, and then kind of started to like a little bit more later. But I think one of the things she brought up was tone, and I'm like, yeah, it's a revenge movie, but I don't know if it feels atonal, and I don't even know if it feels like it's trying to cross multiple tones, but there is a bit of there outside of Lone Watty. I felt the tone was decently even. Although there are times where you're like, man, this is a crazy revenge story. His wife and son get murdered, and then but you don't really feel he feels too bad about it. You know, like it's weird. There's no like after his wife and kid die, we don't really give a fuck. I think there's only one instance where he has a flash of remembering it, but it's not, and that's a 70s thing, right? In the 70s, he's not going to sit down and think about it and drink and be upset and have misty eyes. He's too tough for that, I guess.
Yeah, not during this time frame.
The death of his family really doesn't matter. It doesn't. I guess my point is I'm not sure I emotionally feel. I think that's one of my issues with Josey Wales is I go, cool, what a cool character, cool shootout, you know, and I just go, cool, but I don't really feel a way about it. You know what I mean? I don't feel like, whoa, man, thank God he got his revenge. You know what I mean? I don't feel. It didn't really move my emotional needle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're more emotionally de-invested. Like it's just very surface for you. Like
it's
just
very
watching a
surface
good movie.
to me. Yeah, I'm like, that's a cool Western. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
And
well,
you know,
I mean, we'll yin and yang it here. Take Tombstone. Tombstone. I am from beginning to end. I am thoroughly invested in every character in that movie.
Me too.
Especially the Earps.
Yes, but they're more developed. Like Josey Wales is not he's not developed at all, and I'm not even. And I think really Val Kilmer steals that show. And let's not do the Tombstone podcast now. But
no, I won't.
But I do think that Kurt Russell. There's a lot to that performance as Wyatt Earp, you know?
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot of emotion there, something to get invested in, a guy. But this, it's just, I think Josey Wales is just sort of like this specter of death. He just kind of moves across the countryside to getting his revenge. He's kind of on the run until he has the final showdown and he murders these guys. And what happens after that, God only knows, because the Union still won and he's still in all, oh yeah, we know what happens. But yeah, I don't feel super emotionally invested in it. You know what I mean? I'm just it's cool.
And that might be a sign of the times, because now you take 90s when something like Tombstone's in there, and take the 70s. We weren't as invested in our emotions in the 70s. You're kind of buck up and keep going type of thing.
Yeah, you might be right about that. That could just be the lay of the land of the culture at the time.
Yeah.
People felt deeply in the 70s, like they did all throughout time. But in terms of like how did that look when it played out in the cinema? I think we're seeing, that's why I'm really glad we're going through time when we do this.
Yeah. We chronologically with these movies.
But it's funny because you go back and you look at the searchers and you see like they wouldn't even want to suggest, they don't even want to say the word rape. And 20 years later, they're showing
you can see the
people
culture shift.
Get raped.
You can see the culture.
They're showing.
They
show later ladies getting her white bare ass and all those fucking brown hands grabbing at it, making white dads everywhere faint. You know that whole fucking like what a difference between John Wayne saying, "You want me to spell it out for you? Draw you a picture." Right? It's just a different time, the 50s to the 70s. Yeah, and
completely.
Yeah. So I don't know, but no, I felt I don't know. I guess you could say the same about the Searchers, but I felt more emotionally invested in the Searchers than I did in Josey Wales. And yeah, I don't know why. It could it be something as petty as needlessly spitting on a dog's head twice?
I mean, it maybe, or maybe it's the fact that he's the difference between the stories, maybe, right?
Yeah,
could it be that?
It's not as petty as the stupid spitting. I'm largely being tongue in cheek about that.
Yeah, of course.
But that doesn't endear you to a modern audience for sure.
Oh, of course not. I watched it and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I know. I was
That's
like,
exactly what I said.
I was like, what
the
a douche.
What?
And
Why
I was
did you do
thinking,
that?
you know what I really thought was going to happen? I thought the whole it sounds so dumb to even say, but I thought the whole spitting at a dog, I thought that was going to be sort of a subplot arc. Because I thought by the end of the movie, he was going to be, I turned to Maja, because I hadn't seen this movie since a kid, so I didn't remember it. And I said,
Yeah.
After that first spit at the dog, I said, by the end of the movie, he's going to be petting that fucking dog. And I was wrong. Because I thought that they're going to take him in that direction. Like, yeah, he's this hard, despicable fucking guy. And you know, he's had terrible shit happen to him. And he's, you know, a guy whose family's lost. He's having a bad day. He spits at a dog. I don't think that makes him the devil. But I think that it makes him difficult for us to endear himself to an audience. And by the time the end of the movie comes around, at the end of the movie, he misses the dog, which I don't know what that means. I don't know if they're suggesting, oh, he's lost his edge a little bit. You know, maybe he's lost his edge because he tried to spit at the dog and missed. Does that mean something? Is that some sort of weird metaphor for he's losing his edge and he's going to soften? But I was really, and maybe that's the subtle genius of Clint Eastwood. I don't know. But I took it as, I guessed it as he's going to, by the end of this movie, be just a dude petting this dog and loving this dog. He's going to come around on it. And then when he didn't, I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. He just misses it. And I go, well, he missed it. What does that mean? And I actually laid in bed at night going, he missed a dog. Why did Clint have him miss the dog? What was the point of that part of the story? Was it to suggest something about Josey Wales? And maybe I'm reading into it, but why show him miss the dog? Why if you're a director, why waste film on that? It means something.
Or maybe it was like half-hearted because he's changed a little bit. He's softened up a little bit.
Exactly.
And he has a little bit, not a total.
He doesn't spit in the house when the lady's like, if you don't work, you don't eat around here.
Exactly.
He spit on the floor and then he swallows it, which is fucking nasty.
Ugh. But there's a little bit of softening and or growth. I mean, towards the end, he rides off in the sunset, and he doesn't ever go back to, Waddy and Laura and all them that are at the house.
Yeah,
but
yeah, that's the assumption anyway.
Yeah, I would think so. I think he just took off, but he's slowly. You see a little bit. He softens how he talks to people throughout the movie. He uses a little less grit in his voice, and he becomes this kind of this leader of this motley little crew.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and good for Waddy getting some. I laughed my ass off.
That's so funny, dude.
You just look over and he's just like, "What's up?" Like no big deal.
Do me a favor, pale-faced friend. Let me fuck this girl. Go back to your tent. Paleface, you've stolen enough of our women. Leave this one to me.
Paleface, you ever heard of the word cock block? You're being one right now.
Paleface, this boner will not last till sunset, till sunrise. Please, walk away.
I love it. He's just like, yeah, hell yeah. I was like, good for you.
They
didn't take this away from me.
The moment where he blows away the guys in town, too, is cool. He's like, well, one had a flap holster. One had scared eyes. One had crazy eyes. Like the way he evaluated those guys and who he needed to worry about and who he didn't. And then when he says, what about the one on the right? Because, Lone asks him and he goes, never paid him no mind. Because you were there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great line because it shows he completely trusts this Native American guy now.
Yep.
They're now compadres, and that's cool.
And I like that. And I like that it's not a bombastic like friend montage. It's not. It's
he doesn't
not
have to high five him.
Yeah, it's not like. Even though I love this, it's not Supadai and Conan running through the mountains with the theme. We're gonna show a montage of being friends. It's a little more subtle. I like it, but he's starting to trust them. He's starting to realize that maybe there are some people still out there that are worth the investing your time into.
Yeah, indeed. So we see the Lee caravan get attacked, which is this group of people who were also at that outpost, that bigger town. And there was going to be a rape that took place. Pretty disgusting. But we find out that we'd rather her be fresh. So when they trade her to 10 bears, they can get some horses. So, hey, You know what? They stopped the rape, so but they are going to still engage in slavery, which is selling this woman to a Comanche tribe for fucking horses.
That's awful.
Jesus Christ. But yeah. So this sort of, I think, where do we go from here? The abandoned mining town, right?
Yeah, the dried up silver town.
Another great line by Lone is he says, "Any man who had a gun, who lived, always had an edge." It's a great line.
Yeah,
there's a lot of great lines in this fucking movie, but yeah, I like the. Also, Laura Lee is a fucking dum-dum, isn't she?
Yeah, she's a smooth brain for sure.
The clouds are like dreams floating across the sky blue mind. Give her back to the Comanche.
What they didn't show you was Josey Wales eye rolling as hard as he possibly could and just taking a deep breath and being like, I should have let them take you to fucking 10 Bears. I'm out of here.
You call that poetry?
Yeah.
Oof, she is a fucking dum-dum. It's dippy white broad shit. You know what I mean?
It's 70s. It's 70s,
it's just
like
dippy white 70s broad shit. It's stupid.
Did you ever look at the flowers and have them talk back to you? And you're like, all right, I know, I get it. You've done LSD and you've been on Haight and Ashbury. Let's go.
Exactly.
Ugh,
I love the way you rescued me. It was so far out. Awesome. Is your first daughter's name going to be Star?
That's yeah. Great. Moonbeam or something like that.
I did a nice one. Shout out to Lost Boys.
Hell yeah.
I like the abandoned town. I love the idea of a mining town where the silver runs out and then it just is empty. That still exists today. Like just an empty town that was a mining town. And when the fucking veins dried up, they were out of there. And then you just see these guys sort of hanging out, running out of booze. And Josey makes a bunch of friends because he cracks open the booze that they recovered from the caravan. And everyone's his buddy. Except for the bounty hunters. You want to hear the bounty hunter line?
Hell yeah. It's so good.
You a bounty hunter?
Man, he's got to do something for a living these days.
Dying ain't much of a living, boy.
Oh.
So good.
Dying ain't much of a living, boy. That's the best fucking line, dude. It's so good.
Just to know that he's like, yeah, you know that I'm going to kill you because you're coming after me, right? You have no idea what you're going to get into. Yeah. And if you're a bounty hunter, you got a timeline kind of for the most part because you're hunting down bad people. You're hunting down criminals, people who have no qualms about killing. So you're on a timeline and that's scary. And I love that he just delivers it kind of leaning against the wall. Very, very cool. Like tough guy, masculine.
It's awesome.
It's great. It's great. And it's one of those things that like why this movie is sought after still to this day is that kind of bravado.
Indeed.
You know, calm, cool, tall figure.
And I dig it. I dig that part of it a lot.
Absolutely.
I like a little bit of a callback to the Searchers is when the Comanche just kind of tracking them openly. I think that's just great. They're like, they're sizing you the fuck up. They're just kind of riding along with them with their horses close enough to kind of ascertain, are these guys going to be a problem if we want to raid their ass? I love that. That's the Comanche. That's so badass.
It's
and
pretty
real.
I
like how Josey just rides to him. That's ballsy, by the way. And they kind of just break.
Like, they just break away because they're not about. They're just. It's just a scout right now. Just a scout.
Yeah. Again, the patience in which they're handled across these two movies has been really cool. And that you know, after poor Lone gets beat up by the Comanche, and a couple of the guys get killed kind of off camera, I like how Josey's like, I'm gonna go talk to this fucking guy because I think that's wise. I like that Josey's like. I like that Josey because he when he's telling them how to defend the house, he really thinks it's going to be from the Comanche, right?
Yeah,
he's like pistols at close range and do this and do that and just throwing around those orders, and I think that's great. But then he's like, maybe I can head this off. I'm going to go talk to this guy 10 Bears.
Well, what were the two guys they were with? It was Travis and one other guy,
Hector or some shit. I don't remember.
Well, he just says they got him, so you think they're dead, but they're not.
They're not. They're not quite dead yet.
Yeah, but I like that he's like, okay, I'm gonna go meet 10 Bears, And this is an amazing portrayal.
I love this moment
of a Native American. He looks fucking scary.
He looks dope. Yeah, that's I can't remember his real name. It's Will Sampson.
Will Sampson. I remember him from Poltergeist 2 when I was a kid.
Yes, dude. That's hilarious.
And I was like, wait a minute, I know that guy. And you know, a lot of movies don't get Native Americans right, and I'm sure they took their time with this, but I feel like this is an accurate representation of a leader of a Native American tribe. Yeah. Very, very smart, very calculated. I love that they give him the reverence and the respect that is deserved. And when they have they get together and they have the talk, I had goosebumps the entire time. It's an interesting conversation because there's no flexing of muscle.
Yeah,
between them, it just starts off with a honest conversation.
A quick bit about William Sampson Jr. I pulled it up on my phone here. He was a Muskogee Nation painter, actor, and rodeo performer, best known for his performance as the apparently deaf-mute Chief Bromden, and of course, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And smothering old Jack Nicholson at the end there. But
I didn't know that was him. Shit,
fucking crazy, huh? But no, he died at 53, man.
Really?
He had scleroderma, a chronic degenerative condition that affected his heart, lungs, and skin. Jesus.
Holy shit.
During his lengthy illness, his weight fell from 260 to 140.
Wow.
How fucking terrible is that?
Fucking skeleton. That's sad.
Fucking shitty.
He's a great actor, though.
He was fucking cool. He was a cool cat. A rodeo actor. I mean, that gives you a level of toughness most people don't understand. Bronco busting, no big deal.
Well, I understand it because I watch Yellowstone, so I got it.
Bronco busting, buddy. Yikes. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Tough bastards.
Don't get kicked in the face. But this meeting is phenomenal. I got a clip of it here. Do you want to listen to it? I got just the audio.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's going to be able to play on YouTube. If you hear it, great. If not, sorry. But here we go. Let's just say 10 Bears echoes a lot of my sentiments.
Mm-hmm.
It's said that governments are achieved by the double tongues. There is iron in your words of death for all Comanche to see, and so there is iron in your words of life. No signed paper can hold the iron. It must come from men. The words of 10 Bears carries the same iron of life and death. It is good that warriors such as we meet in the struggle of life or death. It shall be life.
Awesome. Because the way this works is that's such a great quote.
Absolutely.
But Josey goes to him and says, very respectfully, like, I'm not promising you anything extra. I'm picking life here. We could kill each other, but what are we doing? Right? Men can do this without butchering each other, is his point. That's what leads to that double tongue government talk. He's like, men great. Don't have to butcher each other. Why are we doing this? It's awesome.
No, they come to an agreement about. I love that they're like our words are iron, meaning they cannot be broken. That they mean something. That they stand the test of time. Mm-hmm. Versus a treaty written on paper, which
indeed
is constantly betrayed or lied or abused. Exactly. So I like that. I like it's a common respect of two warriors meeting and going, we don't have to fight it out. We're going to live on this land out here, and you're welcome to come whenever you're ready. We'll send you with beef jerky and some cattle as a good offering, and you can do that every year. Just let us live here peacefully.
Yep.
And then they both cut their hands and they do the Arnold,
you son of a bitch.
And Carl Weathers, and they bond themselves. Oh, it's so bad, so sad. But I was like, yes, let's go. I love that kind of stuff, that camaraderie between men. Even though their worlds are completely different, they're still meeting together and coming to a peaceful resolution.
You know what? I will say this actually, Scott. Can I maybe pose a small argument against completely different worlds? I think you're onto something there in one sense, but I also think they're more closely related than they might even realize, and certainly that the government is interested in you discovering. right?
Yes.
They're
I agree.
They're guys
I agree.
trying to survive out here. That's what they're doing. They don't want to be killed. They don't want their people taken. They want to eat. They want peace. They want to be left alone. So in that, they have a lot in common. Yes, they come from very different cultures.
Different
sure.
societies, sure.
Different societies. But when you boil it down to it, and this is something I say all the time, this quick tangent will just be, I think that's the left and the right both kind of want the same shit. And that's the real tragedy of it all. But I think in this movie specifically, yes, I think they can come to an agreement because they do have similar wants and needs.
Yeah.
You know?
And they both have the disdain for their government. I mean, Josey Wales is a Confederate soldier. Ten Bears is a chieftain who's trying to save his people from the Union pushing west.
Yeah.
They have similar things for sure. And they're both kind of like, they live without they're outlaws technically, because Ten Bears is a leader of a tribe that doesn't really want to acquiesce.
Of course,
would be the word, I think. He doesn't. They want to live their life the way they've been living their lives for centuries. They don't want this new force pushing them around and telling them. The sentiment you share is one I share as well. I don't think that we are all people in our country and even in our world are more similar than we are different. If you take away our borders and our nationalities, we all want the same shit. We want to live and be happy. And that's something that I like, that moment where they're together. It kind of shows them. It shows them going, yeah, this is it. We can do this. And showing respect. I love the respect on both ends. He's not calling him an Injun or a Redskin. He's not calling him, Johnny Reb or Billy Yank or what have you. There's reverence between them, and I love that. I love that.
In fact, the only moment where there's any type of overt use of sort of, I guess you'd say, racial pejorative is Redskin and white face or pale face, and it's done in a joking fashion between Granny and Lone, and it's great.
Yeah,
it just shows they're beyond that. Like they live out here
they're
together.
Like,
they're beyond that.
We're gonna kill some redcoats or redcoats. We're gonna kill some red faces. He goes, no offense.
She says,
he's
no
like,
offense.
none taken. She says, no offense, none taken. And
then when the white dudes show up, because that's ultimately, once the Comanche are sort of negotiated out of this, the final stand is, of course, fucking old Beady Eyes comes back, and that's when they're
Union soldiers.
And that's when he makes the joke back to her, and you're like, this is great. I like this. I like that we can make jokes about this stuff. That's great. That's a step towards camaraderie.
They grow together, and there's some scenes in it where they're like, we're watching right now, where they're all dancing. They're all just there. I mean, a little bit of time has passed. Because they have he shows Josey Wales branding some cattle, and they're all having a good time. That looked like a real
branding.
Yeah, it was. It smoked pretty real.
That had to be a real branding.
And it was the 70s, so probably
Yeah, exactly. Spit on the dog, brand the horse.
Yeah.
Trample the
Spit
chickens.
on the bugs. Spit on your dead corpses. Well, that's another thing I wrote down in my notes, was that there is some great riding in this movie where they almost fucking kill the horses, though.
Yeah.
Like, they come down creek beds and the horses' legs knock together and like lock up. And I was like, oh, I felt bad for the horse. Because, I mean,
of course,
they're being pushed a little too hard. By today's standards, you would not see a horse run like that. Full gallop down a stream, like a riverbed, jumping off a little, 5 feet down, and the horse
crazy risky.
Yeah, wicked risky. Not only that for the horse, but also the people riding it. It's thrown real easy.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I noticed that. I was like, "There's
the apocalypse of horses has been her."
How many they killed? Like 200.
100 horses at least died in Ben.
Holy
100.
shit!
That's fucked up, dude. Giant, beautiful animals just to make a fucking movie. That's not as good as Gladiator. Go fuck yourself. How about that?
I agree.
How many horses they kill in Gladiator? I'm not going to say none.
0.
I think
zero.
Maybe 0.
Maybe 0. at least in not half a farm's worth of horses. That's crazy.
That's a lot of horses, bro. That's like 10 horse farms.
Holy shit. When you think about it, if you were to like stand up 200 horses and be like, yeah, they're all dead. You'd be like, wow.
It's fucking.
That's dark.
If you just stood there, if you've ever been around a dead horse, you're like, that's a big, giant dead thing. It sucks. And then you just imagine 100 of those. So people can be, movie
Entertained.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
Loss of life for nothing.
tell me about the final showdown, Scott. How do you like it?
You know what? I love it. I thought like they were going to have a moment when they're riding up slowly. I love it. They're all in line. Like they're,
That's
this
cool.
is an enemy.
There's a couple of
We're
cool
in
shots
line.
here. Yeah, a couple cool shots here.
I thought they were going to stop and have some kind of rebuttal to each other, but I'm remembering that this movie was made in the 70s and they didn't do that. There's no Braveheart speech. There's none of that. It's just kind of they're looking at each other and then it breaks bad. It breaks bad so quickly. I love the fact that all the stuff that he taught all the rest of his compatriots to fight against the Ten Bears and his crew, they're showing the white man. Like all the things, okay, this cross is for shooting left and right. It becomes
it's awesome.
it becomes like, I've planned this,
They've
but we're
been
going to
trained.
adapt it. Yeah. And I love that he goes, you're alone now, Mr. Wales. And he's like, oh yeah? Boom. All you see are these rifles come out of these holes. It's just such a badass way to end a movie. Like your friends standing against the tide.
Yeah. And I think it says something about the movie ultimately because Josey Wales is quite the loner. He's not going to surrender with Fletcher. He doesn't really want to ride with the kid. He doesn't want to stay with Lone in the beginning. And when Lone's like, oh no, I'm coming with you. He's like, oh fuck. Like now that you have a horse, goodbye. I think right when he goes to the outpost to get the horse, he's like, okay, goodbye. But then we see him sort of relent on that idea. And he does sort of like that camaraderie. And this does get back to the missing the dog with the spit thing. I think I'm having this revelation that all of this culminates into Josey sort of going, you can't do it all alone, right?
Well, we'll see. I mean, a little bit, because also too, remember right before he runs into the Redlegs, he's going to leave again. He's actually leaving when he turns the corner and sees old what's his name there? Terrell, old squinty eyes. Terrell coming around the bend there. Yeah. And he has a conversation with Lone Waddy, who's like, you're going to fucking leave again, dude? Like, what's your problem? And then he's trying to explain himself and Lone Waddy just walks away.
So maybe I'm wrong about that. You think so maybe I got that wrong. Maybe
I think from here on, he's
he's
good to go. Like, I need people. And you do. Arnold said it best, I am not a self-made man, and no one is. We all work together. I think you need people in your life.
Of course.
And I love how they're just like, they're a well-oiled machine inside the house. You got good old Granny loading rounds in.
And shooting.
It's
Everybody
so
can handle
badass.
a rifle. Everybody.
Yeah. A little bit too much, to be honest with you. You're hitting a moving target, riding a horse up a hill, and you're shooting once and hitting every time you shoot.
And you don't have the rifle braced.
Yeah. Which
I didn't realize we had a bunch of Lee Harvey Oswalds in that house.
Yeah, right. I got 2 good shots off in
maybe
3 minutes.
the wrong
1 minute.
comparison to make. Sorry, that might have been insensitive of me.
But I do like.
Say what you want about that wackadoo. You could shoot a rifle.
Yeah. Those aren't easy shots.
For the firearms aficionados in this picture, the Colt Walker 1847. A lot of these guns were excellent and accurate to the time. Walker 1847 used by Clint. I think he's got 2 of them.
He has 2 of them.
And then we have a couple other firearms I want to mention. We have the Colt 1860, which is a 44 cal. That's something we see Fletcher carrying. And I think we see Jamie carrying it as well, which is pretty awesome. And then we've got a Richards cartridge conversion, a Colt 1860 Army, which is a Colt Army Richards Mason cartridge conversion. There's a Colt 1849 Pocket. That might be the one he wears, the 3rd gun he carries.
Yeah, in his waistband. Yeah,
in the Huckleberry holster. No,
yeah.
It's not a Huckleberry holster. Those are a power. But you got the Sharps 1863 rifle, which is cool. So you see a lot of that. Trapdoor Springfield 1873. That's the one that you see that gun quite a bit. Springfield 1861.
My alma mater.
Yep, we see Enfields.
Yep, I fired an Enfield.
Yeah.
I also fired the round, the gun that Josey Wales, the 2 pistols.
Nice.
Because I'm a Civil War guy, and I'll tell you one thing about them is they're a pain in the ass to reload.
They suck to reload.
Actually, which I was surprised they didn't show. I mean, not that it's about guns, but what they used to do is because they used to actually have to coat them in wax so the bullets wouldn't fall, the rounds wouldn't fall out. They'd put wax in it after they packed it, and they would for the pistols they would actually keep the whole spindle, the round. They would keep extra ones so they could just pop it on there because it would take so long to reload.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, some of these guns, they're pretty. I love that they're accurate because it shows them reloading them, and they're pain in the ass. They were pain, and this is supposed to happen after the Civil War, and they had better guns at this point, but they were not everywhere yet.
Yeah,
you didn't have a lot of like your modern revolvers today,
right?
That you were still loading them like the breech loading.
Another gun is the Colt 1872 Gatling gun. Yep.
Oh, that's the one they shot out in the wagon earlier.
The wagon gun.
Those are
cool. Then there's a howitzer cannon, which you see kind of during that Civil War montage. So yeah, that's for the gun nuts out there.
Hell yeah. You ever fired one of those guns? Like any of those old school pistols?
Yep. I can't remember what it was called, but my dad's got one. I can't remember.
Yeah, they got a lot of kick to them.
I think it's a Navy Colt, but I don't remember.
Hell yeah.
What exactly year it's from. I'll have to ask him. Yeah, those old timey pistols are fucking cool. But let's talk about the conclusion of this movie when he gets old Narrow Eyes. That shot, probably my favorite moment in this, is when he pursues this guy to this town, and then he comes upon him stumbling out of the outhouse, and the camera just moves to the right, and Josey Wales is standing there with his pistols drawn, and he just starts dry firing at him.
Yep.
It's just so menacing and cool.
I love that they decided to keep him in the shadow.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's all dark. He's moving towards him slowly, just trying to see if he's got anything left in any of them.
Yep.
And he
just
doesn't.
Clicking and clacking. It's awesome. And then he just runs him in with his cavalry saber.
Yeah, he pulls a saber out and he just grabs it, and he's only got one arm because he is shot in the arm.
Yeah, he's fucked.
And he just leans that thing right into his chest. I was like, yes. And that's how I knew even though he has very few lines, Terrell is a good baddie because I wanted him to die.
Yeah, he sucks. He sucks. The moment of revenge, the close shots of the eyes and of the massacre is great. This is a really good ending, which I will say. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie is this right here. And just running that fucking guy through. Awesome. And then, of course, the story at the end where, Fletcher kind of has his back in the end, right? Because Fletcher knows who he is. And Fletcher's like,
of course,
you can go loose. And that's good for Fletcher because you don't want to die either, right?
Yeah, right. He made it all this way and killed all those people. I'm not going to be able to handle him, even if I'm good.
Yeah. The guy talking, in this scene, the guy who stands up and starts talking, because these are Texas Rangers, by the way. He's the judge in Royal Dano. He plays 10 spot. He's the judge in Twin Peaks, which is cool. But the shots of Fletcher, the shadow on his face, just his beaming blue eyes, it's great.
I love this movie because it does play with a lot of light and dark when they shoot. I love it. It's artistic. It's not as beautiful and grandiose as The Searchers. Yep. But it's you
still don't feel a sense of scale as much as a sense of scale. Like when he's like, "We're in Texas," you're like, "Are you?"
Yeah, you could be Texas. You could be anywhere. It doesn't really give you that kind of... It could be a
patch of grass 10 feet to the left. It doesn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel super, it doesn't, like you said, like the scope doesn't feel as in there.
As wide.
But look, at the end of the day, I like Josey Wales as a movie. I don't know if I love it, but I do like it. And I think it's good, for sure. I'm not sure it connected with me too deeply on an emotional level. I don't know if it has to. And that's just after it was over, I was like, cool. I wasn't like, fuck. Like after Searchers, I was like, fuck. And if you would have told me I was going to have an emotional investment in a John Wayne picture over a Clint Eastwood picture at the start of this block, I would have said, bull fucking shit.
Right.
And here I sit. Quick listener question. Oh, do you want to say something else about this?
I was just going to say, I love the ending real quick about how the people he brought the booze in,
absolutely,
they cover for him. So they're, hey, Mr. Wilson, these guys are Texas Rangers. They're looking for that outlaw guy. You ever heard of him? Josey Wales. And they're like winking at him like,
not
hey.
good poker players, but sure.
Yeah, right. And then
this flop is terrible. What am I gonna do? He's holding pocket aces.
All in. Yeah,
he's holding pocket aces. There are 2 on the flop. Oh no! What am I gonna do?
I got nothing, man. I got nothing.
That's fucking funny.
I love it, and I love that the Fletcher, like, there's not much said between him and Fletcher, and I love that.
Mm-hmm. It's great. Doesn't need to be. This doesn't need to be incensed with horseshit dialogue from a cute writer. You know?
Yeah, and that's the difference of today. A lot of today's movies would have done that with this. They would have been like, "I knew you'd come looking for me."
Writing.
Yeah. It's just he's just kind of seeing. He feels him out by like a couple.
He's
sentences,
holding his
like,
pistol. Like Fletcher's not fucking around. He's like, I will kill you if I have to.
Yeah, it's like, are we gonna have to fight here, or we're gonna go our separate ways? And they're reading each other, and they're both come to the conclusion that there's some kind of mutual respect, and we're gonna go our own ways. And I love that. I love that's how it ends. Yep,
the subtext of Fletcher saying the war's over. You know, but good shit, man.
Hell yeah.
I enjoyed it. A quick listener question from Master Rockets: what are the aspects of the West that inspire you? So the first question would be: are you inspired by the West? And he puts examples: land ownership, unlimited freedom, lack of tax, gold, or the possibility of gaining fortune. Do you share any of these sentiments that Master of Rockets proposes?
Yes. To me, the West is fascinating because it was a time where people could really take their future in their own hands and try to carve out a living.
Yep.
Imagine 1842, Dean and Scott got a wagon and decided to go to, I don't know, Idaho. And we pick our land, 600 acres of land, and now we've made something of it. And we've left something. We've left a mark on the world for our children to continue on with.
Sure.
And having, and at the time, during the West, having very little to no law out there. That's good and that's bad. Feeling the freedom of not being under the yoke of the government would be something that inspires me. Absolutely.
For sure.
To be able to hold my own life in my own hands and be responsible for my people and just making a living doing that and enjoying the days would be, I would find nothing more fruitful.
Yep.
What about you?
Yeah, I think what inspires me about the West, and it's a good question, is reflecting on it is all I can really do, because the idea of the West now I don't think really exists. I think the West is space, you know, and I guess my point is, I think what inspires me about the West is the fact that it sort of captures our human intrepid spirit of exploration and to go into the unknown and to take that risk and to do something, to make something with it, you know. People get all bent out of shape about people owning, 3 houses and talking about the greed of an American who owns 3 houses. What do you need 3 houses for? You're so greedy or whatever. And these are the same people who will say that, 40,000, Native Americans who may have had 1 billion acres of land is somehow not greedy. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I guess, and I'm not saying take it from them, but I'm just saying what is owned and what isn't owned in the West. I don't really know. But I think if you could have been somebody who went west and made some sort of peace with some of the people who lived there before you without taking their land, with them going, well, there's 1 billion acres out here. There's room for people. I think that that's an interesting idea. And in making something, leaving something behind, like you said, a legacy, and just proving to yourself that you're capable to do what you can out there. And I think that intrepid spirit of courageousness and boldness is I think some of it's romanticized, but I do think it did exist. People did do that. These people went out there believing they were protected by God most of the time, because they went out there ahead of the government a lot of times. You get that when you read about the Empire of the Summer Moon. Like, these people, these Calvinists, are just like, let's go out. Fuck it. We don't need the government. It'll be fine. And sometimes they get slaughtered.
Sometimes it wasn't fine.
and I just want to be very clear. I'm not suggesting that a Native American tribe that had land stolen deserved it because they were somehow greedy. I don't want that to be misinterpreted. If you have ever listened to me before, you know that I certainly don't fucking think that way. But I do think it's funny that we'll also say that somebody who owns 3 houses is greedy. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of fucking land out there, and I think when you and I think that's what makes the government's crimes against the Native American people even worse, is that all that land, you had to take all of it. You couldn't even leave some of it with these bullshit reservations. You know what I mean? It's fucked up. And that's why I think, like, a lot of times, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of this idea, like, that these Wagon West people were stealing land. I don't think they were. And I don't think a lot of the natives who thought that either. You know, I think that unless they were literally stealing their land. So I don't know. You know, I think the West is an inspirational idea. And I think it really captures the spirit of America on some level. The good and bad of it, the beautiful and ugly of it at the same time, you know. But no, it's inspirational to go out there and to do something with yourself. People, you go out there and you make it. I think there's something to be said about that. That's really romantically attractive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And this time period is only 20 years. There's no other time period in history that there was this many movies made for a 20-year span.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, it's nuts. So, I mean, It's inspired some people for sure.
It's inspired the whole nation once upon a time. And I think that's the thing, right? I think that's just the way it is. So,
I love it.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's shitty what the government did to those people. It's a fucking crying shame. And, the same government who was pretending it really cared about freeing other people after just sort of genociding others. It's not like, don't stop trusting them.
Yeah.
Please stop trusting them. That's all I ask. Just be a little bit skeptical and stop putting on rose-colored glasses when you look back at history. That's all. Enjoy these fucking cool movies. Enjoy these movies. That's all. It's cool. It's cool to watch these fucking movies, man. And just be a skeptic, you know? Don't just I don't know.
Just think.
Think for yourself. Think for yourself a little bit. Don't listen to me. But do explore. I guess that's it. And enjoy the fucking movies, right? This is a movie podcast after all. And I know we go a little bit deeper and we like to do that. And our listeners certainly like it. And I think we did the Outlaw Josey Wales justice. So it was good talking to you, Scott. Thank you
Always
for the listener.
Pleasure.
And we will be back next time. I think we're doing Long Riders next.
Hell yeah.
Which means we get to see the other side of this, not the Jayhawks, but the Bushwhackers turned bank robbers in a guy like Jesse James. And we'll make some connections with the Long Riders back to how Josey Wales, and you'll just have to wait to see what I'm talking about with that. But that's the Jayhawk and all the other shit and what that spurned and the rivalries and everything else. But all right, that's it. We're done. This has been a blast. Thank you very much for making this happen. This is a morning recording, which is wild. And it's been tons of fun. Coffee.
Clint Eastwood.
Coffee and Clint Eastwood. That's it, brother. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. It's been great. And we will see you on the flip side. Hey, we didn't sell membership this week.